Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our heroic super guide to General Drakkisath. In General Drakkisath, there's not a lot of variation in the strategy you're using in different classes. He does have the distinction, while he's not the single hardest heroic boss to beat, he's definitely one of my most hated, because it feels very, very RNG and like you just have to sort of get lucky and get the right things in the right order. He just has tools that can continually destroy you. Things like Kidnapper become super powerful. You play like a good response, but he can play something and kidnap your thing. He has the spell to just destroy any minion of yours. He has, I think it's Deathwing or Twisting Nether. Twisting Nether. I think he has some way if you do manage to somehow get ahead to like destroy your board. And he has Sprint to draw 4 cards to refill. And I think he's programmed to always get it, for it to be like the 4th card in his hand or something. He's very annoying, but we have beaten him with every class, and even beat him with a deck of only basic and common cards, which I was worried might not be possible. The general strategy, there's not a lot to explain. You just play like big powerful dudes, and at some point once you're ahead, try to play Death Rattle minions so that when he eventually does Twisting Nether you still have a board. So you'll see things like Sneed's Old Shredder are great. You'll see things like Piloted Sky Golems. And you'll obviously see powerful things like Kel'Thuzad, Sylvanas, Ragnaros, Alexstrasza that are just some of your more powerful legendaries that you can play on your turn. Foe Reaper to sort of simultaneously hit a few things at once. The other sort of oddball you'll see coming up a lot in my decks is Majordomo Executus, because he does have mind games, and this is just a fun little, basically you never want to play Majordomo, it's just a fun little thing for the slight chance that when he mind games he gets Majordomo, and then it'll speed up your ability to kill him a lot, though it didn't actually happen to me in my attempts against him. With that said, let's jump into some real decks for this, who is one of my most hated heroic bosses. First off, we have Druid. Druid doesn't have any great removal without him getting stuff in return, though I think this might have been pre-mulch, but anyway, we have Big Game Hunters to deal with some of his more scary stuff, Death Rattle minions, Sylvanas, Boom, Ren Blackhand because you do have a few dragons, etc. The Druid specific things we've added in here are Cenarius, because being able to generate the 2/2 taunts can be good, or if you have a big board, being able to buff them can be good for helping speed up killing him. Mechgineer Thermoplug is actually a surprisingly good legendary in this matchup, because as he attacks and kills a couple things, you'll get extra Lepinomes to be able to trade and just do more damage to him. Onyxia is great for sort of refilling the board. Deathwing obviously beneficial. The cost is, clearing your hand, but if he has an imposing board, this can be your lifesaver. And then just Giants of 8/8 bodies to fill out the curve. There are better options now. This was, what I played back when the adventure came out. There are better options now, like 10/10 bodies, like Faceless Behemoth. And 9/14 taunts, etc. that are better than the Giants, which are basically just put in here for their default 8/8 bodies, which at the time of the adventure was about as big as minions got. Hunter is pretty much the same story. You have deadly shots for removal in this case. Mogor the Ogre is another fun one you can put in there, because often you kind of get board states where he has more stuff out than you and you want to stay alive, and Mogor can help in that. If he has lethal, but he might not hit you in the face, and instead trade with your minions, and usually your minions will be superior because they're legendary, etc. So this can sort of claw you back into the game, but obviously it's very RNG. Other hunter-specific things, high mains are worth putting in there. Gazrilla can add up if he has some smaller things to chew on. Stormwind Champion's a good one to just generally buff your board to get favorable trades. Force Tank Max is a great common card that, because of the Divine Shield, can often get you 2-for-1s that are very valuable. Gruul keeps growing, but not really at a fast enough rate. And the only other hunter special we have in here is King Crush, as a fun one for that charge ability. You can charge into a Kidnapper or, in some worlds, maybe for lethal. That's Hunter. Here's Mage. We throw in a couple of secrets for fun, mirror entities to try to get some of his cool things, vaporize to destroy when they attack face is quite powerful. If he has like if he does like a Deathwing or something. Polymorph is yet another way to deal with his threats. We have another Mogor in there for the reason we talked about, to, if you're low on life, give you a chance of his minions outnumbering you, not hitting your face. Otherwise, it's pretty standard stuff, up to the point where we also have Pyroblasts, which theoretically could be used for lethal, but often you basically just end up using those as removal as well for big minions of his that are troubling you. When it comes to Paladin, the specializations we can do here are including 2 Eldor Peacekeepers to neutralize some of his big threats, Holy Wraths, because your cards do all cost quite a lot. You know, the vast majority are 7 mana plus, so you can kill a lot of his minions outright and draw something for your next turn. Other than that, it's pretty much the standard set of big, scary legendaries that you play against General Drakkisath. Tyrion you can throw in, who's quite nice in this matchup. Nowadays you could maybe do Uthra of the Ebon Blade in a more modern update, in that the weapon will give you lifesteal. Nozdormu's kind of just a fun one, even though it chooses you more than the computer. And that's about it in terms of the Paladin options. Moving on to Priest, this is a more modern deck that I only got around to beating him with recently. We theme this one around Awaken the Makers, which is a bit questionable to be playing on turn 1. Let's face it, but yeah, you have your deaths for removal, your Onyx Bishops to resummon great things like Sylvanas. Basically, it's like a free 3/4 body on top of replaying whatever you wanted to play in the first place. Light Bomb's a good way to clear his whole board. The Curator's a good way to just draw more stuff into your Alexstrasza, for example. Kel'Thuzad's great for resummoning your board if you are about to do a bunch of trades. Archthief for farm is a fun new one you can do since League of Explorers. Icehowl can get you an immediate impact on the board where you kill something of his and are ready for a 2-for-1 trade. Maya Noggin Fogger, similar to Mogor the Ogre, except affects his spells as well, which can be helpful if you want to protect against his 1 mana, you know, his spell that destroys a minion of yours. Sargoth is a nice taunt that he'll be forced to march into. Deathwing Dragonlord is a good new addition compared to Deathwing, where if he kills that, you can bring out a whole bunch of dragons, like Alexstrasza. 2 mind controls. This is one of your best things Priest has going for it, is that you can do guaranteed 2-for-1s when he gets ahead on board, where you flip the board state. N'Zoth to bring back all these death rattles you have in your deck, like Solana, Sky Golem, Cairn, etc. And finally, Y'Shaarj is a great one to get out early because it'll keep bringing in minions that can snowball very quickly. That is the powerful stuff you can do with Priest. As for Rogue nowadays, you have your Assassinate, simple single target removal, Ancient Harbinger to put one of these incredibly powerful 10-drops into your hand. Ultrasaur is now better than the Giants we tended to just put in as default 8/8s. Y'Shaarj, N'Zoth, the Deathwings we all talked about. Cthulhu goes well with your Blade of Cthulhu's. You can destroy some of his big minions and eventually Cthulhu, which will sort of clear his board again and have a big threat out. Other than that, a lot of similar stuff we've seen. Some of the rogue specialities are Anubarak for just sort of its high attack, it'll trade with something and leave a body behind, which also is good to have just Death Rattle on the board in case he Twisting Nethers when you are ahead. And other than that, pretty standard fare. What I went with for Shaman back in the day, there's a few interesting quirks here. Hex is your very obvious removal. 1 Bloodlust so that when you are ahead on board you can try close out the game a bit quicker before he draws into his Twisting Nethers. The interesting ones are Ancestral Spirits, so even if you don't play Death Rattle minions you can give them Death Rattle so that if he Twisting Nethers you're protected. And things like Reincarnate on Sylvanas can be great for stealing one of his minions and leaving your Sylvanas on the board as extra protection against future things he plays. Other than that, we mostly have the standard kind of things you would put in here. Alec here is not good enough to make the cut. Again, if you modernize this, you take out the giants and put in some of your more powerful 10 drops that now exist in the game. That's Shaman. Warlock follows exactly the same theme. The different things you can do in this deck are include Twisting Nethers of your own to get revenge on him if he develops a big board. Mal'Ganis can be critical when you're low on life and just trying to claw back into the game by protecting your hero. And we put in Core Hounds in this one because they just trade so favorably back in the day. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, standard stuff. Giants, again, you can replace these with better things nowadays. This is one more way to take him out. Last of the heroes, we have Warrior with R to the N to the G. Bouncing Blade can, if he has like one big threat on the board, bring it down. If he's way ahead on board, you can Brawl. Crush, you know, it's expensive, but when everything costs 1 mana, it's basically just an Assassinate. You don't need your guys to be injured. Otherwise, it's mostly the standard fare, a Major Domo to hope he mind games, and again, modern times you can replace these giants with more powerful 10 drops that you have. Even common ones like Ultrasaur and Faceless Behemoth are better. Last but not least is the question, can you beat General Drakkisath with only common and basic cards? And the answer is yes. I wasn't sure it would be powerful, but the real big guns in your arsenal are Mind Control. So good. This deck I'm going to break down more. Mind Vision is mostly just to steal his stuff because it's more powerful. But what's more powerful is Thought Steal, where you can potentially draw into his deck and get some of his more powerful cards, you know, like Sylvanas. I don't know if he runs Sylvanas. But anyway, the point is you can get like non-common cards, basically, by stealing what's in his deck. Death, obviously, to get rid of his minions. Entomb, you can steal something powerful of his and stick it in your deck. Then Bug Creeper's on the weaker side, but just one of your bigger commons that we could put in. Bone Mare is a great new modern addition if you do have something on board. Sated Threshodon is a bit on the weaker side, but leaves 1/1s, which you can potentially Bone Mare. Stormwind Champion to buff your stuff. Eldritch Horror actually trades favorably with a bunch of his stuff. Force Tank Max, the Divine Shield, so good. Then we get into things like Giant Mastodon, where the Taunt helps keep you alive, and often you'll get 2-for-1s out of these, because he plays, you know, a lot of his minions are not quite the full, like, 10-10 powerhouse, but things you can trade with, like a Core Hound doesn't quite kill this. Kidnapper you kill for free, etc. North Sea Kraken is great for taking out a Kidnapper or helping finish off something else that you're doing like a half trade with a Giant Mastodon. Faceless Behemoth, just standard fare 10-10. Ultrasaur, very powerful at 7-14. A lot of health will get you a 2-for-1, sometimes even a 3-for-1. Look at that long neck. But yeah, Mind Control really is the linchpin of this deck that makes Priest absolutely the best class to take General Drakkisath on with to get those huge 2-for-1 swing turns. So we did manage to beat him. Believe it or not, this actually worked on the first attempt. I doubt, I doubt it's that reliable, but it definitely can be done. And this was one of the ones I was thinking, this might be one where you just can never win with common cards only. But we did it.